while at KLOS, you do one of the most popular features of your radio career. It's a signature piece for you on the Bermuda Triangle. I knew that was going to happen. Tell us about the reaction to the Bermuda Triangle show.
Must I?
Yes. I'm sorry, but this was one you got us plod through here, because this is amazing.
I did three, I was on the radio for 10 years, give or take. I interviewed 2,000 people. I spoke to maybe 10,000 on the telephone. I was on the radio and TV consistently. There were 3 radio shows that I did. I interviewed a group of, quote, students who were holding American hostages in Iran. I was the first reporter to be able to get on the telephone, talk to the guys who were holding dozens and dozens of American citizens in Iran, and spoke to him for about a half hour about about why he was doing what he was doing. He turned out to be a 22-year-old kid, who was threatening to kill the hostages. It's the only time I ever got an award in my life. I got an Associated Press award that I shared with Roy Tuckman for this exclusive. I did that. I did a radio show where I was hypnotized and went through a process of age regression. That's where you're taken back throughout your life to a point in your life, and then you flip over to a previous life, where there was a hypnotist named William Denier who hypnotized me for 2 hours and took me back through my life, and you heard me speak as if I was 15 years old and 12 years old and 9 years old, describing my mother taking me to Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus in New York and buying me a little turtle with a thing on the shell, and going back further and flipping me back into a previous life as a man named Steve Dwarman, who was a miner, who lived in the late 1800s, who died in a mining accident, who had a wife and children, and I recalled all the details of him, been in the mine, etc. Did that with those 2, and then I did the first broadcast ever about the Bermuda Triangle. It was called Stendeck. That was the name of the show. Because at the end of the program, I recalled an incident of an airplane that was just a mile or 2 miles outside of Miami International Airport with, I think, 150 passengers on board, and the pilot was on the phone with ground control to arrange for his landing. Everything was smooth as silk. And then the pilot started screaming the word Stendeck, Stendeck, Stendeck. And within seconds, the radio transmission ended, the plane disappeared. To this day, there has never been a location of the plane, the passengers, or an explanation as to what the word Stendeck meant. That's how that radio show ended. It was the Bermuda Triangle show. Well, Orson Welles did a show on Halloween, about Martians landing in New Jersey. And at the risk of sounding really presumptuous, and I find myself here in a spotlight not of my own choosing, with the great homage to the master of the media, Orson Welles, one of my teachers. I guess the Bermuda Triangle show was my Martian show. It's a 1-hour documentary, a 1-hour special, where I interviewed people who had traveled through the Bermuda Triangle. I interviewed a few people whose family was lost in the Bermuda Triangle. I spoke to the representative of the Air Force. I spoke to people who had theories about it, people who talked about time continuums, people who talked about UFOs, people who talked about vortexes under the ocean. I mean, it was a very comprehensive, well-researched, well-sourced radio show. And I thought I would broadcast it, as I did, 50 of them on various subjects. Right. And that would be it. And I went home that night I went to sleep, and I got up the next day, and all heck had broken loose. I mean, there was more reaction to that than, going back to a previous lifetime. More reaction than Iranian hostages. More reaction than the first documentary about the conspiracy involved in the assassination of John F. Kennedy, which I did a year after his death with Mark Lane and Mort Saul and the people in. More reaction than me going to Giant Rock, California for 3 days and interviewing people at the Flying Saucer Convention, who would talk about what their adventures were like when they had been kidnapped and taken off to Neptune and Jupiter. More reaction than interviews that I had done with any one of the hundreds of celebrities and superstars. People could not get enough about the Bermuda Triangle, including phone calls that I got from local librarians in various libraries in different cities throughout all of Southern California, who said that we've had this run of people who have appeared at the library saying that they heard this radio program and they want books, because at the end I ran a bibliography down of, I think, 30 or 40 sources of where I got the information.
Right.
And people wanted more information, and the librarians wanted to know more about it, and they didn't have the books available. It followed me for years. I remember going to the bank to make a deposit, and I put the check through the thing, and the lady gave me the deposit slip, and she said, "Thank you, Mr. Mintz. By the way, what do you think Stendek means?" I lived in Laurel Canyon. I would get my food delivered by this place called Greenblatt's Delicatessen. They supplied me with food and wine. For 10 years, they would just drop off the food and the wine. And the delivery guys were just really friendly. And they would say, well, that's $18 because you had the nacho chips and the stuff and the stuff. And that one night, the guy delivers the food, and he says, well, that'll be $19.95, and I'm going to get the $20 and a $5 tip for him. And he said, I think it really does have to do with parallel time travel. I think that there's some people who live here, and I received, I think, more than 1,000 letters. You've been on radio all of your life, to receive 1,000 letters on a given subject. The years after that, I couldn't even speak about it. This is the first time I've spoken about it for 10 years, because I just OD'd on the Bermuda Triangle, until finally it was picked up in the vernacular. I think there were movies made about it, documentaries were made about it. So, for the record, of all the letters, of all the phone calls, of all the interruptions of me putting the spoon in the soup and reaching my mouth at a restaurant with a friend and somebody tapping me on the shoulder with a theory, one lady wrote me a letter saying, after exhaustive personal research, she has found that the word Stendek, in a, paraphrasing, Latin translation of the lettering, turns out to be a mythological game not unlike chess played by the gods. And that one felt as comfortable to me as anything I've heard about a description of Stanley Kubrick's monolith in 2001: Space Odyssey. So thank you for bringing it up again. And I don't ever want to talk about the Bermuda Triangle, or what it is, how it happened, how it occurred. I have no idea what the mystery is but beyond it, but it's very real.